if you've got pedals like these, you know how easy it is to very quickly get in a mess, because you've got so many power supplies, so many units. This is just a small selection of my own personal collection. The problem with having lots of pedals and lots of cables is that you can easily get in a mess. It's difficult to tidy them up, it's difficult to put them away. If you're playing live gigs, what do? Well, the simple solution is you get a pedal board. Turned out well, make a number of pedal boards, ranging from very simple pedal board, takes 4 or 5 pedals, through to larger single tier pedal board. You'll notice that Turned Out Well pedal boards have lots of holes in them. That's because we affix the pedals to the board using cable ties, not using Velcro, which is the normal way of doing it. Cable ties are much better because they don't damage your pedals. You don't need to take the feet off. It's a lot easier if you are using batteries. I don't recommend you do use batteries. It's a lot easier to keep your pedals in better condition, basically, and a lot easier to change them in and out. If you want a different pedal or reconfigure the board, it's quite quick to do it. Today I'm going to build a board and show you how it's done, but I'm going to do the top end board. So we're going to end up with a board that looks like this. This is the kind of home version. I'm going to build the gigging version, which is a thicker quality board. This is a 2-tier board, as you can see. There's room on this side for a wah-wah. 3 or 4 pedals here, 3 or 4 pedals here, depending on what pedal you've got. And there's room under here for a power supply to power them all, rather than just one. And this is the power supply I was talking about. This is a simple SoundLab one. This will power 6 pedals. But in fact, I have an extension cable as well, which will allow me to power more pedals, which is quite useful. I'll come back onto that in a moment. So you need one of those. You need connectors to connect your pedals together, ideally ones with right angles, and a couple of tools, really just a pair of scissors, a screwdriver and a little hammer or something to knock things with. So let's get started. So this is how the gig level pedal board arrives. As you can see, it's got various bits in it, nicely packaged. Okay, I'm going to split that open. Just need a pair of scissors to do that. And there's various bits. There's a little bag there with screws and feet and things. There's 2 risers, what we call risers or stanchions. There's a top tier board and the baseboard itself. And attached to the baseboard, you'll see that there are some cable ties. First thing I'm going to do is just snip the back of that off with my scissors. Very easy to do, to release my cable ties. Now, you get a fair selection of cable ties with your board, but you may need more. If you do need more, it's very simple. You can just go down to most hardware stores and they sell these in various lengths. They're only very cheap. Probably pay £2.50 for twice as many as that, or maybe even more. Okay, so we're going to build the board first. First thing to do is to put the feet on. It's quite simple. As you can see, inside the little plastic bag, we've got a set of instructions. Now, I'm not going to use the instructions today, but I suggest you do, because there's all sorts of advice on there about the best way to lay your pedals out as well. I'll come to that in a moment. So first of all, make sure all the bits are there. You've got all the bits. You need some snips or scissors. You need a small hammer, cross ply screwdriver, or 2 in my case. Your power supply unit, which obviously doesn't come supplied, and your short jack leads. In here, the bits that are supplied, I'll come back to that piece in a minute. You've got glue, a little bit of glue there. You've got 6 feet, heavy duty feet, and you've got screws. So I'm going to put the instructions aside. I suggest you use them, but I don't need to because I know how they go together. First thing we're going to do is release our screws release our feet. Okay, and it's quite simple because each one of these has a little hole in the middle, and they marry up, hole with screw, and simply screw them in. So a fairly nice stable board at that point. Okay, next thing to do is to fit the stanchions in. Move those out of the way for a second. Okay, to do that we're going to use some glue. We've got the stanchions. Now, curved part of the board to the front, obviously, or the back. Where it says the name of the board is the back of the board. These stanchions, the taller part to the back, narrower part to the front. It's quite easy to work out which way up they go as well, because these feet here will only fit in one way. They won't fit there, so that must be the top and that must be the bottom. They actually just drop in, but just in case, we always recommend you have a little hammer on hand in case you need to tap them in. If you do need to tap them in, basically what we recommend doing is putting this thing over the top first and tapping them down, like that, just to get them in place. These are very loose, and before you do that, obviously, before you tap them into place, cut just a little corner off the glue sachet, and what we're going to do is just put a little bit of glue along the edges where it fits in. Remember, you want the right feet first, which are these. So we're going to pop a little bit of glue just along there, just along there. You don't need a lot. Around the edges of the feet, like so. I think you can probably see that. Just along there. Smooth it down a little bit. Okay. And obviously in this case it's just dropping in. So line them up, pop it down. Make sure that's the right way around. Yep. Again, ooh, just a little bit of glue. Bam. Going all over the place. Yep. Like so. On the edges of the feet. Ooh, not too much. There's miles more glue than you really need. But don't worry. You can, if you want it to look nice, get a little bit of cloth, maybe just a wet bit of cloth, and wipe the edges, just to stop big blobs of glue looking nasty. Though to be honest with you, it dries in such a way that it won't really be a problem. Okay, so there we go. And the same with the upper tier. The upper tier simply fits on like so. Now, in this case it's a little bit stiffer, so I think I'm going to need my knocker. Okay, I'm going to pop a little bit of glue along those edges. Well, making sure you get it in the middle really so it doesn't drip out too much, like so. I'll show this in a bit closer in a second. You don't need too much really. Smooth it down a bit, like so. Okay, I hope you can see that. Okay. It's a little bit tricky this. Well, not tricky as such, but you need to make sure they are lined up. You can't just knock them a little bit with your fingers like that. If it's proving. Now this is where the knocker comes in. So I'm going to get my little knocker, pop it on here, because I don't want to hit the actual board itself. Just knock it down a little bit. You can tell when it's registered, because these are nearly at the top and it sounds a little bit different. There we are. That's the essential basic board built. Now normally you would leave that for a couple of hours, perhaps put the board aside even and decide exactly what you're doing with all your pedals, in what order and everything. Now I'm hoping you've already decided what order you're putting your pedals in. I'm going to have my Vox wah over at this side. Now this has previously been used as on a pedal board, and it's got Velcro on it. I absolutely hate Velcroing things onto pedal boards. If I could find the feet, I'd put them back onto it, but I lost them. That's the sort of thing that happens. If I decide I want to sell this pedal, I'm kind of screwed really. But I could tuck that tuner in there, but that's not going to be really very good. So I want my Vox pedal to be first, and I want my tuner to be first, and then my Vox pedal. But it's a bit awkward because I've got other pedals I want to use in the chain. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my tuner up here, and that's going to be the first input. That's where my guitar input is going to go. Now the way we do this is, whilst I suggest normally to some people putting these in first, it's easy to do the top tier of pedals first. So I'm going to do that in this case. One of these won't go all the way around and through the holes. It's easier to get in through these holes basically if you've got the power supply out. So what we're going to do is join those two together. They're very easy, just slide it down there. Now I've got two, now I've got a longer length. So what I can do is I can go in from the underneath, I can go around the pedal itself, being careful when I feed it through the holes to make sure that it's not going to push against where the jacks are plugged in. And in this case the Boss pedals are quite good because you can simply tie them like this. I'm pulling underneath at the moment. I'm going to trim that underneath. I'm going to trim it here. I always like to leave these in the corners. There we are. It's not touching any of the controls itself. You can probably see that. Still all operates. The buttons here and everything. Power supply up at the top here. Okay. So when we wire it into the PSU underneath, it should be no problem. Take my scissors and just trim off the excess cable tie. There you go, first pedal done. Now then, as I said, I want that to be the first pedal in my chain. I like to have my wah-wah next, and the input on my wah-wah is this side, and that's the output. It says here. But I'm going to, because I don't have to worry too much, I need quite a longer cable for that one. So in this case I'm going to go through here and I'm going to put that as my output there, and I'm going to feed it through the holes in the board because I don't want the cable dangling around all over. So I'm going to go round the back here. Okay, that would be a bit long. So it's little tricks once you know what you're doing. It's just going to take up a little bit of slack on that. Yeah. These don't go through the holes on the floor of the unit. Okay, so that's where my wire's going to be, like that. I like it there. Okay, so I'm going to spin that round. Just make sure that's how I want it. The power supply connector to this particular wire is over at this side, which is not good really because I'm going to need to run a cable from the PSU under there. So the wire is going to need, it's quite a wide pedal, so I'm going to join three of these together. We've got a nice long one there. Now I don't want it to interfere with the actual pedal operation here, so I'm actually going to go through back here behind the pedal. That's okay, because these cable ties aren't too long. They won't interfere with the actual operation of the pedal. Pull that fairly tight underneath. And then, yeah, make sure that the pedal still all operates properly. Nice and tightly attached. Okay, I'm going to trim that. Just there. And there. What I want to do is put the ones on the top of the chain first. So the way my pedal board is going to be set up is, this is my first pedal, this is my second, my third, fourth and fifth are going to go here, then I'm going to have my sixth, seventh and eighth here. So what I like after my Vox wah-wah is to have my overdrive, in this case, pedals that I want to use on this particular setup, okay, which include a noise reducer up at the end, a metal distortion I'm going to put there. I've got this little Dan Electro Chili Dog which I want on here. I'm going to move that one over a little bit. Got my Giga delay here. Now then, and the last one that I'm going to put on here, which I like, is my rotary machine, which is a Behringer unit. I'm going to put all those into there. But what I'm going to do is fasten the top ones on first, because I want to then put the power supply on. It's difficult getting underneath. You put the power supply in first, to be honest with you. Is make sure I get my cables sorted out. So that's where my electric guitar goes in initially. That runs off to my Vox, and then we're going to go from my Vox across this way. But to be honest with you, your pedals can go anywhere, really, if you've got long enough leads. I've got some quite long leads, which are good. Plenty of them, as you can see. My Vox overdrive has the input on the right side, so I don't need a long cable for that. And that one's going to go there. It'll be quite a short cable, and I can scrunch them up quite tight, those two. Basically, put the pedals as close as you can together, because then it's easier to fit more on the board, obviously. And we're going to go down there, down there with that one. Again, making sure this thing's at the side, the connector, if you can, because then it'll keep it nice and tight to the board. Carry on in the same way for each of the pedals, basically connecting the jack sockets and the power supplies as you go, and positioning each one on the board. The power supply goes underneath the second tier, and as you can see here, all the cables can be routed through some of the holes, for the power at least, and all the other cables joining the pedals together can be tucked in and wrapped around the stanchions and things like that as well. Of course, the last thing is, very easy now to just basically pick it up and walk off stage with it.